Morning. We are calling this meeting of the South Carolina Commission on Disabilities and Special Needs to order. This is the March 16th, 2023 meeting. We're at 10:03, I believe, a.m. The notice of meeting statement, Commissioner Blackwood.
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the March 16th, 2023 Commission meeting was distributed March 14th, 2023 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. In accordance with Americans with Disabilities Act, the public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to welcome everyone this morning. We have 4 commissioners here besides myself and 2 online, so we have a full commission today. Commissioner Woodhead is at a adaptive tennis tournament in Louisiana, and Commissioner Thomas, his best friend is very ill and he is with them, but he is online. So they are all with us this morning. We have the agenda in front of you, commissioners, and it was posted on our website for review. Are there any questions, amendments, adoptions? What do we want to do here?
I would make a motion to approve it.
The motion to approve the agenda as written. Do we have a second?
Second, Barry Melfors.
Any discussion? None. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we move forward. Invocation, Dr. Kohler.
Heavenly Father, we are here as servants of yours and people of South Carolina. Please guide us in all decisions that are being made. Through Christ we pray. Amen.
Very good. We also have the minutes for the February 16th, 2023 commission meeting. You have received those in your packets. They were placed to commissioners. Please, are there any changes, additions, subtractions to those minutes?
I don't have any. I make those.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Commissioners update. We'll start with Commissioner Woodhead. Can you hear us? Commissioner Woodhead?
Yep, I can.
What's
So
the
I'm in Baton Rouge, Louisiana at the Cajun Classics. It's one of the largest wheelchair tournaments in the United States, and it has all the top wheelchair tennis players from around the world. So it's going to be an exciting week down here.
Great, great. Commissioner Thomas?
Do you want me to give a report on legislation at this time, or would you like for me to wait? Is there a spot that you want me to jump into on the bill that's been introduced?
Yes, let's wait and do that during the legislative report later on down. This is just
all right. That's fine.
Any updates from you though?
No.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Carr?
Okay.
Commissioner Malphurs.
I'm passing too, believe it or not, today, because because David's going to take care of legislative matters, so I'm going to pass on mine and use the time at that point, or let him use the time.
Okay, I do have an update. I just wanted to thank the executive leadership of the South Carolina Human Service Providers Association for hosting their annual conference last week and bringing together so many providers and vendors who serve DDSN consumers. I was able to attend the conference, and I appreciate their dedication and learning and connecting with providers who have so much insight and ideas to help improve how to carry out services and support for individuals with disabilities. The journey, of course, is not easy, but I admire their passion and dedication to serve the most vulnerable. So I enjoyed seeing and meeting many faces there at that conference. And then I also enjoyed seeing again some of the parents from the Coastal Center who attended a part of the, came over to where the conference was and met with them. So those are my updates.
Great. Well, I also was fortunate enough to attend the South Carolina Health Service Providers Conference down in Charleston. I went for 3 days because the focus of the conference was the future is now. The discussion centered around, for me, there were several tracks. I know Robin did a track on QA. What other, you did quality, and Robin and I did different classes because we wanted to make sure everything, she did Thera and quality. I went more the Tech First State route because that is something that we as a commission voted to promote with the health services providers. It was a very, very informative track. I learned a lot about how the things that are provided through these abilities allow families and individuals to live a more independent life and live more independently and give more options to families and to those in need of these services. I met with Mr. Harold Slows, who's an innovation consultant who handled the Tech First implementation in the state of Tennessee. He is excited about South Carolina looking at this option. I highly recommend that the commission and that the agency look to bring him on as a consultant in our efforts with the HSP to actually bring South Carolina into the Tech First State status, I think is what we're looking for. Two really honorable mentions I wanted to give. Tyler Rex won the Debbie Barton Award. If you all don't know, Debbie, the Barton Center was named for Debbie. She was an individual that was just an outstanding disabled person. She raised money. She focused, did a lot of legislative work. She worked a lot on disability rights. She was just an unbelievable individual. And to receive that award, Tyler Rex definitely deserved that award and is a great recipient of that honor. I also want to recognize Patricia Blaylock. Patricia works at the Tri-County Development, and she was made Direct Support Provider of the Year. She has been serving the disability community in South Carolina for 34 years. And I think that is an honorable thing. And I just want to commend her on her efforts and her work for the disability community. So those were some highlights of the meeting. I did take some extensive notes on Tech First. And when it comes time for us to start consulting on that, I'll be more than happy to share the notes I took on that. There were several sessions regarding Tech First. And then we also had the opportunity, Robin and I, to sit down with some families from the Coastal Center. It was a bigger group than we sat down with when we went and toured Coastal Center a couple months ago. They had a lot of concerns, and they had a lot of positive feedback. They really are excited about how their director down there is working. They're very pleased with the efforts that are being made to do improvements. They still were requesting some improvements to be done. And of course, I've communicated those back to Constance at this point, and she's assured me that the staff will be taking care of that. One of the concerns that they did have was that there used to be a communication, something done monthly, where they could actually do a video interactive with the director down at Coastal. And we just thought that was a great idea. And I mentioned that to Constance, and I think they're going to start working on that so that the families have a little bit more connection with the administration and a better line of communication with those families and those consumers. So those were just some highlights of what's been going on with me this month. I do need to inform you all that I will be having my second hip replacement on April the 18th. That would be 2 days before our next DDSN meeting. And in doing so, I am going to not, because I will be on a lot of pain medicine at that point, I'm going to have Commissioner Malphris to fill in for me in the month of April. All right, so that's my update. Do we have any public input, Constance? No? Okay. I do want to remind you all that public input is offered at every commission meeting. Anyone who would like to speak, all you have to do is either show up outside and sign your name so that we know who you are and can call you up here, or you can go, if you want us to call you, we're more than happy to call you to let you give public input. All you have to do is send Constance an email. That stuff is provided on our information that's sent out monthly. Our public input is limited to 3 minutes because typically it gets, after 3 minutes, it's just repetitive. So what we encourage you to do is give us a 3 minute. If you want to write something down and hand it to us that's more extensive, we encourage you to do so. The only people that we cannot, for legal reasons, allow to speak to this commission are attorneys or people who are suing DDSN or attorneys who have cases that involve DDSN. So if there's ever any question about that, please feel free to contact me or our legal counsel. They will be more than happy to address that issue. All right, so we have no public input. Brain Injury Awareness Month is this month.
Didn't you say?
No, there were just visitors, I think. It was just visitors. Y'all don't speak to me. Okay. Just making sure. But I tell you what, why don't we introduce y'all so the commission knows who's here. If you're a visitor here today, if you don't mind just telling us who's here, that way we kind of have an idea. Yeah.
Dean Red, Carlton County Board of Disability Special Needs.
Glad to have you.
Margie Williamson, Arca, South Carolina.
Lindsay Daniel, Community Options.
Okay. And back.
I'm Nicole Mayberry. I'm with the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Good morning, Annette Green. I'm a parent with the Parent Association of Coastal Center and Somerville.
Annette, we're glad to see you here today.
Thank you.
Good to see you
Good
again.
to be here.
Glad to have you. We enjoyed our meeting, by the way.
We did.
Good. We're glad we could be there. All right, so those are our visitors for today. And this is Brain Injury Awareness Month. I'm going to turn it over to Melissa Ritter, who heads up that program for us. And Nicole, of course, Nicole Mayberry is with the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina. And we welcome you, Nicole.
Good morning. So thank you for allowing me a few minutes to talk about Brain Injury Awareness Month. I'm excited to tell you about what we've been doing to raise awareness of brain injury and to promote prevention. Spring begins this month, but we've been talking about falls. So according to the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control, falls account for 44% of non-fatal traumatic brain injuries. So that makes falls the #1 cause of brain injury in South Carolina, and it's actually the #1 cause of brain injury nationally. But the good news is many falls are preventable. So to that end, we've been focusing on falls prevention this month. Weekly, we've been sharing information about falls prevention and tips with DDSN central office staff. We've also planned some special events for the month. Earlier this month, we had the West End Co-op here set up site. The West End Co-op is a supportive, creative environment for people who are going through therapy after brain injury, and it teaches them new work skills and work worth doing. So they create jewelry and do screen printing of t-shirts and stationery and all kinds of great things. So they were here on site and allowed staff and community members to come in and purchase items from them. We had a really good turnout. And then next Friday, we'll have Lyra Peck from Prisma Health come in, and she is going to do a Think First Falls Prevention presentation for DDSN central office staff. Think First is a nationally recognized program. They have a falls prevention curriculum that many hospitals and other places present across the nation. And then on Thursday, March the 30th, we will hold our second annual Baking for Brains bake sale. So DDSN central office staff, bakers volunteer to provide items for sale, and then staff are able to purchase those items, and all the proceeds go to the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina. And last but not least, we have some really beautiful artwork on display downstairs right outside of the elevators. Those are pieces were created by participants at the drop-in centers at Thrive Upstate, and they're really beautiful. Those participants participated in a guided art a guided art presentation provided by the Brain Injury Association of South Carolina. So those are the the initiatives that we have been completing this month, and on behalf of the Head and Spinal Cord Injury Division, I just want to thank everyone for their participation. And as always, I would like to thank the brain injury survivors that we serve and their caregivers for giving us the incentive to raise awareness here and prevent brain injury.
And I want to commend you all. I see that the governor did do a proclamation. Acquiring brain injury is often overlooked, and I think that's something that's important. This is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and so we do have a proclamation for that. This is also Disability Awareness Month, in case those of you don't know, but this is the other proclamation that just came out. So congratulations on your proclamation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Nicole, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add. I just wanted to bring the.
They did provide the gummy brains for you guys today.
I always do something. We appreciate that. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to committee business at this time. The nominating committee. It is my job as the chairman to select the nominating committee. I've selected 3 commissioners. Commissioner Miller, I'm going to ask you to serve as chairman of that committee, of the nominating committee. Commissioner Woodhead and Commissioner Malthus will serve on that committee for nominating our next officers. Normally this would be done next month, but since I'm not going to be with you all next month, I'm going to ask you all to go ahead and form yourselves. All you have to do is meet and pick out the next set of officers, bring us a slate. Y'all can do that. You don't have to bring the slate. I think it says until June. You bring it in June.
You can bring it in May and vote in June.
Okay, that's fine.
According to
That's
our
fine.
bylaws, right?
The bylaws actually say June and June. You elect and do it the same, but if you would like to give us a month ahead of time, I think that would be fine.
Take the bylaws again, sorry.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, just, y'all get together and work that out, okay? The other committee that I do need to let you know that has been appointed is the Personnel and Employment Committee. That is I asked for volunteers, and Commissioner Blackwell and Commissioner Malthus have volunteered. So they will, as of right now, be the Personnel Committee unless anyone else would like to volunteer. And if you do, just see me afterward and I'll add you to that committee. Policies. We're going to move into policies at this time. Policy committee. It's under tab 3 in your books. I think, is Lori doing that or is Barry? Barry, okay.
I'm Barry Malthus, Chairman of the Policy Committee. These are 2 policies that were put out for public comment that I'm going to talk about here today. First is 73401DD, which is individuals with family support and respite, which of course provides financial assistance to families who care for individuals with intellectual disability and related disability and autism and HASKI and similar disabilities. The motion was, the directive was put out for public comment, and there was no comment received, and so we would ask that would be put up before the commission with a motion and second for approval.
Let me ask one question. When did comments close on this?
10 days after they began. It would have been about 2 weeks, 2 to 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay, so it was open to the public, and if they didn't comment by that time, then their stuff cannot be considered.
That's right.
March 8th it closed. Okay, so it closed March 8th. So that comment on that has already been taken care of. Okay, I do want you all to, this is reference number 73401DD is the policy number. Did the policy committee meet and send this with a motion and a second, or is this just coming?
Well, we did meet, but it was a month ago that we actually met, and we just put it out for public comment after that.
Okay, so
we didn't meet in March.
So it has to come back to be approved with change. There were no changes since it went through policy? All right, so we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on policy 73401DD. Is there any discussion on the policy? Lori, I will ask one question. Is there any conflict with the Family Support Act in this policy? Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, no.
Okay. Because I did receive a letter about this policy, and I just wanted to make sure that that has been checked, those items have been checked. It would be they're saying that, basically, the services in the family support program include but are not limited to, and then they highlighted childcare, transportation services, health-related costs not otherwise covered, family counseling, training, financial assistance, emergency services, recreation and leisure. The services supports highlighted are not covered by the waivers, and prohibiting family support funds from being used by the waiver participants contradicts the intent of General Assembly. I've attached a comparison that they made, apparently, for in-home supports with the amounts actually spent on in-home supports based on DDSN's end-of-year reports.
Yeah. So we can take a look at what they're asking about, but this program is not intended to be a part of that act. This program has been called Family Support and Respite for a really long time. And really what it is state funding to provide needed services to people who are not eligible for ongoing services through a Medicaid program, right? It's kind of a small bucket of state funding.
Good.
So we can definitely look at, kind of what the concerns are. I haven't seen that.
You sent it to me at 1 a.m.
But I think it's apples and oranges, if that makes any sense, right? So this Family Support Act covers all services, not, just the state funded program, which is what this one is.
Well, like I said, it was open for comment for 10 days, and they should have commented there, but they didn't. Instead, they sent me an email last night at 1:10 a.m. And so I hadn't even had time to totally review this. If you can imagine, I was up at 7 o'clock getting ready to get here. So all I did was see it. So I appreciate you answering that, Lori, at the last minute. You're always good at doing that for me. All right. So we have a motion, discussion. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries, and that policy is approved. All right, we're moving on to policy 373801DD, discharge planning for individuals leaving ICFs and enrolling in HCBS waivers.
That is to establish expectations for DDSN regarding discharge of discharge and of course, leaving the regional centers. And that directive was also posted for public comment. It's something else the policy committee has been through, and there was no public comment. And we are, with a motion and second, asking that it would be brought to the commission for approval today.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
So the motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this policy?
For the record, it normally comes out of committee as a motion and second, but we can do it both ways.
So this was
So we didn't have
one.
a committee meeting after it came out.
Well, that's true. I'm sorry. You're right. I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
That's all right. We'll forgive you.
That's right. So we do need a second. Sorry.
Okay.
Any
so-
questions?
Nope, I'm good.
So the record is correct.
All right. We have a motion and a second, no discussion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, and 73801DD is approved. All right, old business. Let's move on to the legislative update from Rob McBurney. Is Carol online?
Good morning.
Morning.
Carol's off today. She's in the middle of a move.
That's fine.
So you got me. Good morning. Wanted to give you an update. We're about midway through. We're a little past midway through of the legislative session for this year. Not the midpoint of the session is 2 years, of course. And anything that a legislation that doesn't get approved doesn't die at the end of this year. It carries over to the next legislative year. In that, our regulations continue their process through. The draft of our regulations has been posted on the state register and for comment from the public right now. They're available in the state register, and if anybody has any trouble getting to the state register. It's on the legislative website, but it is on the DDSN website as well. And I took the emergency management banner off and put that up as a banner, so you can click on that on the website and go directly to download the state register. Has the regs in it if you want to look at it. We're going to take public comment on that until I believe it's the 27th, and then we'll have a hearing on April 20th, and make any adjustments from there on, and we will decide then where, we'll get it into a final draft to send to the legislature from there.
Ron, I have a question about that.
Yes.
We were working on some regs, I think it was last year, some point, maybe early last year. Are these different regs?
No, these are the same regs. They're just taking that process of it's a process we've gone through. We had to do the notice of drafting, then draft the regs. A lot of the issues with these regulations are bringing them from where it was. It's been about 30 years since our regs have been updated. So getting them into with current law, current practices has taken a while, but we've gotten through that process to a point where we're ready to take comment from the public on it, and then we will take oral comment from the public on April 20th if anybody requests it.
I have one question about that, Ron. So who decides when regs are updated? Does the commission?
It's up to the agency. What the agency should do is you should have a 5-year drafting, update of your regs. You should constantly, pretty much constantly be looking at your regs. Almost kind of, as things change with your agency, moving forward, practices change, policies change. You might want to, you always want to look at your regs and keep them updated. But they suggest a 5-year.
30 years?
Correct.
So because the agency hadn't asked to update it in 30 years, that's why it hasn't been updated in 30 years?
That's correct. We've got on this, this is something that, as you remember last year, we had a set of new regs that we were putting in that had been asked for, and now we are going back and making sure we're bringing the older regs into compliance and updated.
Well, I read that in the previous Senate oversight reports and in the legislative oversight reports that they had been instructed in 2017 to do that, and so I really commend our staff for stepping up to the plate and getting this done. That's wonderful that y'all are following through on that and moving forward with that.
That's correct. It is a little bit of a tedious process of doing it, but the legal staff, I have to, hats off to the legal staff here. They've done fantastic with keeping up with all of us adding changes to it.
It's got a little bit of a tedious.
Yeah, I mean, to prepare legislation is very complicated, and I just.
Well, this is a little more complicated than legislation.
Yeah, exactly.
The regs are a little more complicated than regulation, but the more you do it, the more you get into a rhythm of doing it, so that we will now be going forward. We're going to be in a cadence of updating them,
Put it on an agenda.
On a normal pace.
Put it on an agenda to.
That is correct.
5 years. That's wonderful. Well, let's put that in our minutes that we did it for the first time in 30 years, and that we should try to do that every 5 years, so that the next commission that steps here will know to look for something like that.
Okay, and moving on, as far as legislation that we have an interest in that's pending before the House and Senate, there's a bill that we have great interest in, S-343, and that provides for crisis stabilization. This is something that it's not just us asking for crisis stabilization capability. It is a number of our colleague agencies. Particularly, this is a bill that that got drafted out of the Children's Committee, the Joint Citizens and Legislative Committee on Children, because crisis stabilization is a great need in the state. And right now, by law, only the Department of Mental Health can provide crisis stabilization services. So we are asking that basically mental health be stricken, and that all of our agencies be able to either stand up crisis stabilization units, or that it would be regulated by DHEC, or contract with crisis stabilization. Also, the hospitals are also involved in it. HHS has made some funds available for hospitals to do crisis stabilization. So they are very interested in doing crisis stabilization. So it is a great need in the state. Particularly, it's a great need for our population as well. So we're behind this bill and making sure that it moves
What can
where
the
it is
commission
right.
do? Yeah, what can the commission do to help promote that? Because that's one of the conversations we had with the families at Coastal Center. We're concerned about that. And then actually, believe it or not, I had a phone call on the way here this morning from some folks that have a child that's going through that. Will these homes be for children or for adults, or how will that work?
Yeah, let me get to what the bill does. What the bill does is it opens up crisis stabilization units for all agencies to be able to do that. The other thing it does is it takes because the Children's Committee was very adamant that children be included. So it takes the age down from 18 down to 5 years old.
Okay.
So crisis stabilization can be provided at 5 years old and up. And that, so that's the other part of the bill. Where the bill is right now, it has gone through the committee process, gone to the floor. It was just passed out of the Senate fully, given third reading last week, and it is now on the way to the House. So we'll begin the how a bill becomes a law thing. It goes through this process in the Senate, then it starts all over in the House, and we do subcommittee, committee, and floor and a floor vote in the House now. So we will be watching that as it goes along.
Did we help? Do we give any input on the drafting of this particular bill with anyone specific?
Yes. It's a pretty simple bill, in that I guess the credit for drafting it really is the Children's Committee.
Okay.
And our on that committee, correct?
And over the summer, over the late summer and early fall, the Children's Committee has public hearings around the state, and Dr. Fry participated in quite a few of those, and I sat in on a few of them as well, and that was something that was brought up. Crisis stabilization was brought up by every local agency. There were parents there and everything. It is it's a very pressing need in the state. So we're very happy that this is going through, and I don't anticipate the House having any problems with
This money to pay for this would come from state funds, all state funds, or is there any match to it?
Okay, we're not appropriating money with this. It's just the agencies are able to do it.
Okay.
Either stand it up themselves. You'll hear a little bit about our ask in a minute, but you either stand it up yourself and you're regulated by DHEC for it, or just like we were regulated for the ICFs and the CRCFs, things like that. But the funding for it would come from the agency, and we're asking for a little bit for it. So this is just to allow agencies to be able to do it.
Right.
Okay, good.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. The budget. The budget was voted on in the House this week. So it is all appropriations bills start in the House. So the House has completed its work on the state budget. particularly for us, we came with 9 legislative asks, 9 decision packages for them. They funded 6 of them, which is pretty good. And I think that's pretty more than what the governor's budget funded, and they were interested in making the money kind of go around for the agencies that they could. And what their big thing was, they wanted to provide some workforce money for us. So they did fund our regional center support for our regional center, our career path, our new career path for the regional center. So they funded that, and then they also have funded the needs that we have.
That's the DSP.
Right.
Career path.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And then they funded our funding for our administrative contract, for maintenance on our community properties, which, as you recall, they put a proviso in that we had to do maintenance on them last year. This is the funding to go with that. Then an FMAP shortfall that we have when the federal government backs up on FMAP, on the amount of FMAP available to the states. They're covering that a portion of that shortfall, and then 2 projects at Greenwood Genetics Center that we have, a genomic computer project, and they've actually made us a pass-through agency for the Carol Campbell Alzheimer's project at Greenwood Genetics. So we're happy to do that. The things that were not funded that in the budget was our crisis stabilization. They didn't fund that. They didn't fund autism, our autism residential, and our new project to speed up and improve autism eligibility. So those are things that are near and dear to some folks in the Senate. So we'll be talking to them going forward and seeing what we can do in the Senate to find some support and some funding for that going forward. So the Senate, speaking of the Senate, we were supposed to have a budget hearing this week. We went over there for it, and the discussion of Scout Motors, the funding package for Scout Motors went a little long. It didn't go a little long, it went a lot long. Constance was over there with us, and our whole team was over there and waiting, and it ran long, and so they had to postpone our meeting. The good news is, though, that they have to get working on the budget by week after next. That's what Senator Peeler wants to do. So we expect sometime in the next week we will have a budget hearing over in the Senate, and they will begin, like I said, week after next. They plan on having the Finance Committee meeting and get to work on the budget over there. So we will be over there for that process. The next piece.
Let me ask you, did the House give a reason that they didn't fund the autism homes or the crisis stabilization homes? Out of curiosity.
Well, they were trying to make, they're trying to make money. They had a limited amount of money because HHS, the HHS increases that HHS needed to do for Medicaid and Medicare ate up a good chunk of the money that they had, of the new money that they had. So for the agencies, they kind of moved things around to where they could, the things that they could fund and fully fund. And they also, they wanted to give nursing support to everybody. Everybody got a line item for nursing support because they did a statewide nursing plan. They didn't want the agencies over there competing for, they did a study on the front end and just gave everybody so that's where some of the money went. So they wound up with really a finite amount of money that they were able to use after things that had to be funded were funded. So
how much were we asking for on those two items? Do you know?
Crisis stabilization, we're asking for $11 million. The autism assessments, we were asking for $960,000. And the autism youth residential, we were asking for $1.3 million, basically. The Senate decides, they decide priorities differently. Right. And so, money tends to become available as the House is very conservative usually on projections and things like that, and rainy day funds and things like that. So the Senate makes different decisions and makes different allocation decisions. So we'll see what, after our budget hearing, we'll see what they have available over there. There's also the possibility that new money could come in. So that's certainly a possibility as well. So
can you also expand on the FMAP shortfall? I haven't heard anything about that. Have any of y'all heard anything about? This is the first I've heard of that.
I would have to let Quincy, our expert.
You hit that in the, you hit it later?
When I come up for mine, I can talk about it.
Because we've been asking about FMAP and have not gotten really any answers as to what HHS is doing with the FMAP.
And we might be talking about two different FMAPs. There's the American Rescue Plan FMAP, the 10% money that was there, but then this FMAP is part of the public health emergency and the COVID Families First Response Act that they gave the state 6.2% more. So we might be getting those two issues confused. So I can explain it when
That'd be great. Thanks, Quincy.
Yeah, you don't want me.
I'm like, oh, what this is.
I do not have green eye shades to start
no problem. We totally got you.
Okay, so the next item is the bill that was introduced 2 weeks ago and was given a hearing just yesterday in the Family and Veterans Affairs Subcommittee was S602. The 602 is sponsored by Senator Katrina Shealy, also by Senator President Alexander and Senator Taylor in the Senate, and about 13 other senators. What it does, it has three parts to it. The first part moves DDSN into the cabinet. The second part of it moves our agency's code section, our title. We are in the healthcare code, which is Title 44. It moves us into Title 43. So everything that our numbering system and everything for our statutes, we just moved to 43, which is social services. Okay. That is where DSS, DEODIS, voc rehab, things like that are in Title 43. And basically, the important thing that it does for the Senate is that moves us from the medical committee, where we, a lot of times we compete for time in the medical committee when our bills are going through, it moves us to the Family and Veterans Affairs Committee, which is chaired by Senator Shealy. And so that is the second part. The third part, originally, the idea was they wanted to take the county boards and move them under DDSN. What they have decided to do was take out the statutes that govern and create the DDSN, county DSN boards, and are basically making them, instead of quasi-governmental entities, which they are now, they are basically going to be community nonprofits. And basically for our purposes, they would become private providers. And what it would do is levels the playing field for everybody. So we don't have this kind of bifurcated system where we have county DSN boards that have one set of rules and then a different set for private providers.
Okay, and what does, when they become private providers, what happens to their properties and the properties we've given them and all that? How does it work?
That's going to be included in the bill. Things, we do own a good number of real estate, as you know,
Yes.
for the private, for the county DSN boards, we own a good number of homes outright, and then we have interest in properties. What they would do is just basically would direct us to put liens on that property, just so that we protect our interests, so that the state protects their interests. That's something that the finance committees and SPA have in the past wanted us to do. So that's the way that would be taken care of, and that's being drafted right now.
Wouldn't that affect the proviso by the house to the maintenance on those houses? Wouldn't that make?
It could, yes.
Them responsible for that now?
Yes, it could.
And will DDSN then set up offices in each county, like mental health and DHHS and those agencies, and have county directors?
What we would do is there would be no direction for us to set up county offices.
So basically the community would have no input it would basically be a completely cabinet agency, and so the providers would have no one locally they could talk to, and the consumers would have no one locally other than their private provider they could talk to. Is that correct? Is that what they're saying?
Well, the way it would work is same way. If you're getting services from a private provider, it would be the same thing. You're getting services from one of the former DSN boards doing they're now would now be named something else. They would be a provider of. They're going to provide the same services that they provided before. They're going to have the same staff, same everything. It's just that they're not going to be quasi-governmental organizations. They're not going to be governed by state statute.
I mean, to me, it seems like a bad idea for
playing field. It really does. I mean, the DSN boards have a certain set of statutes that they have to live by. And really that those statutes would go away with this legislation, and for us to become private providers. We're always going to provide services. There's not going to be a time where we don't provide services to anybody who's eligible.
And who will handle, like, for example, the one who called me today? Who's going to handle those kind of folks? And who's going to handle that kind of thing? Would they have to call directly to the state agency at that point and talk to someone at the state agency, or would they be going through? I mean, they don't have a provider yet.
Well,
who's going to make sure they all get providers?
Okay, so a couple things. If you have a complaint with services,
right?
We have a complaint line here.
Okay.
At DDSN.
And they don't have services.
They have to get eligible.
Well,
They have to apply.
So who would help them do that?
Yeah, and we get those on a daily basis. We might get.
The DDSN state.
We might get 50 of those on a daily basis.
Okay.
How do I apply for services?
Yeah.
That's on our. It's actually, we have a thing on our website. Basically, we have an email address. We have a phone number that you can call. We take those all the time, and I get them from legislators, people who never got eligible. I had somebody that called a legislator the other day, and the legislator was like, somebody was an employee of his, and he brought somebody in and said, don't y'all have services for these people? And I'm like, yeah, we do. They had never gone through eligibility.
Yeah.
So we connected them with eligibility and there we go. And so that's how you're gonna get services. So that you get services the same way. You've always gotten services from DDS.
Okay.
All right. So that bill passed the subcommittee yesterday, and we will have a full committee. I anticipate, I'll look at the schedule and see tomorrow, usually the committee meetings for next week come out.
Commissioner Thomas.
House is going to be off next week, so.
Commissioner Thomas, do you have any input on this?
Hey, he has more than adequately covered the observations I was going to make. So I have, I don't have an opinion on the cabinet form. I don't know if it's necessary for our commission to take a position one way or the other.
Why don't we refer this to legislative, and the legislative committee meet this quarter, or between now and May, let's say between now and in the month of April, meet in the month of April, and y'all decide if we do need to take a stance on it or don't. And then we will move from there. How about that?
I have a question.
Okay.
I have 2 comments, go ahead.
Okay.
I guess it's for Rob. Did the agency give input on the development of the bill?
On the development of Senator Shealy's bill? No.
No.
No, it was, I was over there on 343 when it dropped.
What we do is they asked us for a fiscal impact, so we did.
Okay.
Well, once it was dropped, yes, we did get a
Fiscal
fiscal
impact,
impact.
can the commission see that, to see what the fiscal
I mean, it's
impact
a public
is?
record.
Okay. I'd also like to get a link to the regs that you talked about earlier.
Okay, yeah, it's on the website. If you go on the banner.
Our
The banner at
website's
the top
not
of the
very
page,
easy
you hit
to
that.
navigate, so do you mind sending it to me?
I will send it
Link,
to you.
so I can quickly find it in my email without
Absolutely.
having to search? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
But yeah, but anybody that wants to look at the regs, it's in the state register. What you have to do is you have to go to the state register's website, and yeah, I believe you have to download the document.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
Two other things worth mentioning about the bill, I think. One is that there were 5 amendments to that bill in 24 hours yesterday. So I think there'll be more amendments to that bill before it's all said and done. So we just have to keep an eye on what the amendments are as best we can. The other thing is that all of the boards would at that point be advisory. And so the complete authority goes to the executive director under the cabinet situation. So there is no input, in my opinion, for people with disabilities.
The county board is what you're talking about.
County board, all county boards, all boards, even if there is, it is all up to the executive director what boards are created. But even if that one is created, a state board is created, it's advisory. So everything's advisory, other than the executive director herself and the governor.
Yeah.
As far as the amendment,
Or himself or herself, excuse me.
as far as the amendments go, the subcommittee agreed that there would be a committee amendment. What they call, they're basically going to do a committee report. And that will be drafted in between the subcommittee and the committee meeting, and the committee will take it up when they meet. We get word of when their next meeting is, probably tomorrow.
Okay. Commissioner Mellon.
Yes, I'm just not clear on why the legislative committee is meeting. I'm not clear on that.
We need to decide if DDSN is going to take a stand on this bill or not. That we are, if you read the statute, the commission has the right to say, yeah, we're all in support of this. And so
Or whatever.
whatever we decide, we just need to look at the impact on the agency and decide if the commission feels that this is something that is positive for us or negative for the consumers. It's our job to look out for the consumers, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm referring it to legislative committee to do a to talk with folks and look at the bill, read it completely from beginning to end, and make sure that, and talk with those involved and find out if it's something that we should jump on board for. 'Cause, yeah, I don't see why not, but let's make sure it's what we need to do.
Well, actually, I do see why not.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, internal audit update. Courtney Crosby. Morning.
It's been a while since we've been up here, but we do have a few updates for you from the Internal Audit Division. So the first is going to be some amendments to our audit plan. So when we build our annual audit plan, we build it with the understanding that it's designed to be flexible. So our internal audit charter requires us to review and adjust that internal audit plan in response to changes in DDSN's priorities, to changes in risk, programs, controls, things of that nature. So our charter also requires that I communicate any significant interim changes to that internal audit plan with the state director and the Finance and Audit Committee. So since our last update, we have made a few amendments to the audit plan. We discussed those with both the state director and the chair of our Finance and Audit Committee. So the first area with amendments are our special request audits. So when we built the audit plan, we had a schedule of estimated audit resources attached to it. So that was approved back in August, and it included hours for 2 special request audits. So those hours have now been allocated to individual engagements. So the first is a consumer funds and personal property audit of the Anderson County DSM board, and also an annual procurement card audit that we anticipate rolling out in April. So we've also added an engagement. So with the public health emergencies scheduled to end on May 11th, Medicaid programs will reevaluate beneficiaries to determine whether they remain eligible for services. So we've added an engagement to the audit plan to evaluate compliance with the financial eligibility rules under Medicaid. So also have a brief update for you on the status of our current engagement. So in a previous internal audit update, we reported that we'd initiated an audit of Williamsburg County DSM board. We did spend some time at the board office last week. We think that we have all the information that we need now to finalize our field work. That work paper review process has already begun. We've started issuing our audit observations or our findings to board management. And we have started to receive their responses and their corrective action plans. So we anticipate summarizing all that information into a report for you, and we will have that to you in advance of the May commission meeting. So we also held an audit entrance conference with PAD, Presbyterian Agency for the Developmentally Disabled, in December. We've completed that field work, and the work papers and draft audit observations are currently under review. And we held an entrance conference with Anderson County DSM board on February 22nd, and that field work is currently underway. And then lastly, we're continuing to follow up on outstanding internal audit corrective action plans. So as those follow-up procedures are completed, we update our internal audit observation tracking report to reflect the results of those procedures. And the tracking report for the current quarter will be issued to the commissioners and to DDSN leadership in early April. May I answer any questions for you?
Yeah, I have a question that's kind of related to what we were just talking about with Rob as we think about this bill and think about the things that would change. For a cabinet agency, how would your division of internal audit, what are the ways that it might change if DDSN changes their structure?
So we follow the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, Red Book standards. And those standards require that you report to a level within your agency where you can maintain independence and objectivity. So, if there is an audit committee in place, we would report there, but we typically have a dual reporting role. We have a functional role currently to the Audit and Finance Committee, and we have an administrative role where I report to the state director. So we would, make sure that we report to a level within the agency. Typically, it would be in a private company, it would be a CEO, so it would be state director, where you can maintain that independence and objectivity.
Gotcha.
All right.
Very good.
Thank you
Any
so
other
much.
questions for Courtney?
I think it would be, it's not really a question, but a comment, but I think it would be helpful for you to speak to Carol Stewart about exactly how that would affect you as the bill moves, because I find it difficult for you to, with the way this thing's currently written, for you to have objectivity, in my opinion, but I don't know enough about audits and accounting to know that, but it just seems to me it'd be very difficult for you to have objectivity.
How would the actual, the frequency or the amount of auditing that we do on the boards, how would that exactly change in this new model, possibly, from what you're doing today?
I don't think we know what the new model, is at this point. I think there's still a lot of speculation, a lot of assumptions. So, we would have to cross that bridge when we get there. But, I'm certainly willing to reach out to the internal audit directors at some of the other agencies that are, cabinet agencies or those that have boards and commissions, and we can figure out best practices for internal audit reporting there.
Good.
Okay, great.
That helps? Okay, good. All right, thank you. All right, Quincy, I'm sorry. Quincy, a financial update.
So on page 40, you're going to see the year-to-date performance of the adopted fiscal year 23 spending plan in the amount of $939 million. So through February, the agency spent approximately $216 million in agency cash. The direct fee-for-service Medicaid billing expenditures through February were approximately $638 million. So to date, the agency is currently on target with projections and slightly over by 1.28%. This variance is going to continue to increase for the remainder of the year, mainly due to the rate increases that we've seen this fiscal year for the home and community-based services.
Okay. I have a question.
Go ahead.
When was the last new non-service contract over 200,000 that we have executed on? We haven't had a committee meeting in a while, so I'm curious, what the threshold reporting
We haven't had
activity has been.
anything that has reached that threshold, from my understanding. I haven't signed anything.
Okay, so no new service contracts. The agency hasn't done anything with that since we last met. Is it committee?
My understanding, no.
Okay, and no existing service contracts over 200,000 as well.
That are up for renewal.
Yeah, okay.
No.
No CPIP. Are we scoping of existing CPIP?
So we had a CPIP meeting, I guess it was 2 weeks ago maybe, where we discussed the plan that we're going to submit in June. It's usually due, so that'll come in front of you guys around May. The new CPIP
May.
plan for next year, yes.
And I know that one of the senators asked you for a copy of our financial reports in the meeting yesterday. The hearing. If you don't mind, could you send that to the commissioners as well?
Financial reports.
I think he asked for some financials on the agency.
Oh, yeah, so there was, I think, when you were up there talking, we talked about carry forward.
Yes.
And it would be the same thing that I think I sent you in the Finance and Audit Committee for our carry forward for since 2015. But I can send that to everybody.
That would be great.
That would be great. That is a very good thing you did, and I would like to talk to you more about that.
That'd be great. Thank you. I appreciate
I have a
it.
few questions about that, but I'd like to talk to you about it in private.
Okay.
Well, that was a wonderful sheet, by the way. That's the best overall sheet that I've been provided.
Okay.
Any other questions for Quincy?
No.
Well, you have in front of you a fiscal spending plan versus actual expenditures dated 2/28/23. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the plan is approved. Can you talk to us briefly about the FMAP thing?
So,
because no one understands it.
I guess there's two FMAPs. There was one in the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that gives the 6.2% enhanced FMAP to Medicaid programs that are home and community based.
Right.
that was afforded to all states, and that's been going on since January 2020.
Right.
And so that is phasing out this year. As of 12/31/2023, we will be back to our normal FMAP rate that's published. We're still continuing to get those dollars, and those dollars are going into non-recurring cash. And the other part, the other 10% FMAP that I think you're referring to is when we did a plan for the American Rescue Plan, and we submitted it to HHS, and they rolled it up with the state's plan, and they submitted it to CMS for approval. So there's 10% money that they have. It's about $80 million that is matchable by the feds, and they're supposed to be, they're the conduit of that money, and they're sending it out. I think some of the providers got some of the retention and recruitment money. I think it was like $100 million they put out on the street, not 3 weeks ago, a month ago, maybe. So I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
I don't know, it just said that, they had said something, and.
Yeah, the line item on the budget request.
Yeah, we requested.
So that is to cover, the FMAP for, and I think you kind of slide this, for fiscal year 24. The FMAP is going back to, the feds are kicking in the least amount of money that they've ever kicked in like 20 years. So the federal medical assistance percentage is the amount of money the federal government pays for matching dollars for Medicaid programs. And it varies year to year. It changes every year. The FMAP is computed from a formula that considers the average of the 3 most recent calendar years per capita income for South Carolina relative to the national average. That's the formula. So since South Carolina received a lot of stimulus money in the COVID years, those go into those numbers. And so some of them, maybe northern states or the West Coast states, their salaries are higher than us, so they didn't really qualify for a lot of those stimulus dollars like the southern states did. So a lot of the southern states' FMAPs are going down for the next 3 years. So the feds are not kicking in as much money since our tax collections are up. Economy's doing good, but that means they're going to give less money to the states for Medicaid programs. So we asked for some non-recurring money to get us through those 3 years until hopefully that balances out, that 3-year average balances out, and it returns to maybe historical levels. If our economy keeps doing good, then it's not going to return to historical levels. So it's kind of a wait and see, and that's why we asked for that non-recurring money.
How much do we ask for, do you think?
We asked for $8 million in non-recurring money. They provided $4 million in the House side. So we haven't been able to talk to the Senate yet. The Senate subcommittee will present our budget. So once we do that, then we'll kind of know where we finish and what money we'll get.
And that money is used, tell me, for non-reoccurring costs, correct?
Well, no, it's used for reoccurring dollars, but we're thinking this expense is going to be a non-reoccurring expense because the FMAP, we're hoping it to self-adjust in 3 years and get back to historical levels around that 70% mark. Right now, it's projected to be in the 69.3% range, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're talking about billions of dollars in expenditures for us and HHS, it's a lot of money.
4 million, we spend what, 2 million a day?
Yeah.
At DDSN? So, I mean, that's 2 days.
Yeah. So it's just meant to cover that shortfall.
Yeah.
It's meant to cover the shortfall on all the expenditures that we bill Medicaid. Because they are only giving us that federal portion. So we've got to have that match money to be able to match it.
Okay. Very good. Other questions?
You mentioned we were over budget and you anticipated it to get larger.
Well, the over budget part is the Medicaid wash part. Since we did increase the rates, it's really HHS's budget. It's really not in control of us. Our agency cash is the only money that we're kind of in control of right now since we did that fee-for-service conversion. We're still tracking the waiver expenditures that come through. Since it was part of the spend plan that you guys approved, we're still tracking it.
Okay. All right. Any further questions for Quincy? Thank you, Quincy. We appreciate it. All right. I skipped over frequency of DDSN commission and committee meetings. We are in an effort trying to reduce the number of meetings that we're having. via personal. I mean, I don't mind you meeting online if possible, but, you know, if we're trying to reduce the travel time and that kind of thing. I know that the bylaws, I checked them last night, it says that the commission meets monthly. So in order for us to change anything as far as the regular commission meetings, we have to have a bylaw change. However, our standing committees are finance and policy. Excuse me, standing are legislative, finance, and policy. If the legislature is in session and we have issues like we have, you know, we have, what do you call it? Bills that are being produced and that kind of thing, the legislative committee should be meeting monthly during that period of time. However, finance and policy, I need feedback from you all as to what your committees need and how often you need to meet, that kind of thing.
I will, I don't know that there's a set time or requirement of meetings. I think based on when there's things that I need to, you know, where the committee needs to approve and look at in detail. And if I get those requests from me to review those things, then we'll have a committee meeting. If I don't have any requests because things to review in that committee, then we will not have that meeting, or we will.
Okay.
So, which is
so
what I'm
any
doing.
major financial stuff, we're sending it through committee still, correct?
Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, especially.
Because it takes way too long to sit here and debate it all.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that there are going to be times when my committee needs to look at things in deeper detail and talk about things before we bring it to this full committee. So I prefer to operate in that way so that it's what I've been doing since I've been the chair of finance and audit for the last 3 years. We've met based on the need. And
okay.
There's a lot of activity that goes on at DDSN, so there's a need to meet every month. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, Barry, how about policy?
I would pretty much ditto what you just said. If there is a policy that the commission, I mean, that the staff feels that we need to address, we will address it, but we need to address it through the policy committee so that we don't have a policy committee meeting here along with a full commission meeting, because that's exactly what we'd have to do. And so I would prefer not to do that, because we get into the details, as everybody knows, of not only details, we actually get into the words and how those words are written on those policies. So it takes time, energy, and effort. So I would suggest that anything that the staff believes, or if there was some thing that the commission believed needed to be addressed, we will address it. I would say this would go through the end of the fiscal year, and we'll reevaluate this matter at that time.
Great. I agree.
That's what I would say.
So
and I would ask that Robin, does that sound good to you? For this to go through the end of the fiscal year and then decide what we're going to do after that?
You mean meeting as needed or meeting?
Yeah, meeting as needed until the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so y'all do agree that anything that comes to this commission must first go through policy, or major financial issues have to come through. All right, can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Wait, what is the motion? Wait, someone make the motion. Put it verbally, Robin.
Go ahead, Robin.
You can.
Oh, well then I seconded, you made the motion, okay. What I would say is that.
Well, I can't remember exactly how we phrased it, so that's why I was thinking that you might have it a little bit better.
Business that would come before the finance or policy committee would come from the staff, and only in we'll only decide what's necessary until the end of the fiscal year, and we'll reevaluate our meeting frequency policy at that point for the
new chairman.
For the new chairman, that's right.
Okay, I have no problem with that.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. What you're saying is that if staff come with a recommendation to a committee, who makes the decision whether or not there's a meeting?
The chairman.
The chairman.
Yeah.
But it has to come from the staff, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. It's only those things that are necessary that come from the staff, and then.
If they need us to look at something in,
For example, there's going to be a couple of policies that we have to look at in the policy committee that's come to me from the staff that needs to be updated. And so at that point, we're gonna need to meet to do those two things, or else we're gonna have to meet here. So during this meeting, and so there is a couple, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Lori, that are coming next month, correct?
Lori, do you have?
There are a couple of policies that are gonna need to come to the commission. I need to understand if those policies have to go through policy committee, or if what you're saying is I have to discuss them with the chair, and then there's a decision about whether or not there's a meeting, right? Like, that's what I need to understand.
If there's changes needed to a policy, or if there's public input needed for a policy, I think that it probably needs to go to the chair of the policy committee, and you and the policy committee decide, can you do it without going to a committee meeting? If it doesn't require changes, you know what I'm saying? So if it's nothing, if you're going to a policy meeting just
If
to go
it's
to
a
policy.
formality, we won't meet.
Exactly.
If it's
You
not
and
a
the chairman
formality, we're gonna meet.
decide that.
We're gonna meet.
But if it is a change of any substance to a policy, what I'm hearing is that needs a meeting.
That's right.
Like, I have one policy that is actually Quincy's, right? That's gonna need to be approved in April.
Yeah, there's the audit and finance.
We need to get that
Audit
out to
director,
the
we've gotta get that out to
providers
the
before
providers.
May 1st.
Yeah,
And
that one
it-
probably needs to come in April.
So we need to have, I just need to understand whether there's gonna be a meeting in
So
April.
staff,
Yes.
I thought we were discussing and then bringing it to the full commission. What you're saying is that's not
Discussing
gonna.
what?
Discussing what?
Like, we were making the changes and they were going out for public comment, then they were coming to the commission. Now you're saying we gotta do policy
Without
committee?
the chair looking at the changes you made?
No, I mean, I can show it to Barry. I'm just asking if there needs to be a meeting.
Well, we were.
Because it changes the timeline if there's a meeting, right? And this policy needs to go out by the 1st of May. So,
We can have a meeting the end of the month.
Okay.
but now, so that I'm clear, staff mean going through the state director as well?
of course.
Okay.
What would possibly go through the staff without going through the executive
I want
director?
to make sure we're clear on that.
Of course.
What would possibly go through the staff?
I want to
without
make
going
sure
through the
we're
executive?
clear on that.
Okay, everybody, let's get order. All right, so what we're asking is that if there are substantial changes, we don't want to sit here and read 20,000 pages of changes in a meeting. We want to keep these meetings moving. And if there's going to be significant changes, then those changes need to be made in policy. So when it comes from policy to the full commission, it comes with a motion and a second, so that we know that has been reviewed and that the policies are actually correctly worded and that kind of thing. So I'm gonna trust you and Barry to make the decision about what is necessary and what is not. If it's gonna take us 30 minutes in a committee meeting to change a policy, I've sat through policy meetings. I know what they're like. But if it's gonna take that long in this meeting, I'd prefer it be done in the committee. Does that make sense to you guys?
It makes sense to me.
So I guess that's a redirection of what you were told by somebody?
Well, it's kind of what, I just want to make sure, like, at this point, I'm worried about Quincy's policy, right? Because we didn't have a meeting in March.
Right.
And if we go back to the workflow of the committee, it goes to the committee, out for public comment, back to the commission, which is a 2-month process, right? This policy needs to go out May 1st. So that's kind of why I'm going, I just need to make sure.
There's one other thing to mention. If there is a policy that needs approval,
Yeah.
like this one at the first of the month, and we can't meet till the end of the month, let's just hypothetically say, our policy states that it does not have to go out for public comment. It could be approved, and then there's a reevaluation as to whether it needs to be for public comment or not. So all of our policies don't have to be for public comment. If there is an emergency policy we need to amend, we can amend it and then reevaluate at a later time if there's some outcry from the state about a policy, we can reevaluate it. So we can approve it to make it official and then reevaluate later.
Is that what you understand?
I understand that, but for this policy, and Quincy can speak about it a little better, I think there's going to be a good bit of public input because it's a pretty substantial change to the current audit policy, right?
Can we send it out for public comment before it goes to the committee?
I can do whatever you guys want me to do.
I would say go ahead and send it.
I wouldn't
I would say go ahead and send it out for public comment and then let them review what comes in and make sure it's good to go. And then bring
What
it
we'll do with that one is send it out for, we'll make the changes, send it out for public comment without the committee viewing it.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring it to the committee with the changes and the public comment. That works.
I don't have a problem with that.
That work?
Okay. And
That works for everybody.
that could be until the end of the fiscal year.
And that, yeah, I mean, things like that, I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with any of, with that being done until the end of the fiscal year.
Can you make a motion on that?
Yeah, somebody make
Yeah.
a motion.
I'll make a motion that
You
that's,
have to take off the
Yeah.
table, your first motion,
yeah.
right? Do we?
I'll rescind
Yes.
the first motion.
Okay.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't voted on, so I'll rescind the first motion and say that we will reverse our normal way of doing things that we've done for the last 3 years until the end, only until the end of the fiscal year, to have the staff change the policies that are necessary, only those that are necessary. Change the policies that are necessary, put those out for public comment, and then bring them to the full committee to the committee, if necessary, for final approval, if the chairman sees fit.
So, just another question. So if that happens.
Wait, I have a motion on the floor. Let me get a second, and then we can have discussion. Do I have a second?
Second, yeah.
I have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
So if that happens, we send it out for public comment, we take it to the committee makes substantial changes. Does it go back out for public comment?
No. No, it does not go back out of public comment because it's already had the public comment. So if it went, it doesn't need to go back out for public comment because we can reevaluate it in another month if necessary. We can reevaluate.
The commission.
Reevaluated policies
That's what we
over and
can do.
over and over.
If we have, let's just do it this way, and if we have to, we'll put it back out for public comment again.
Right, well,
If the committee makes tons of changes.
well, if the committee makes changes and the committee decides to approve it, then it will be approved. And then there'll be, if there's an additional outcry because we made those changes, then we can reevaluate the following month. But at the time when we somebody's upset now. When we reevaluate,
They're drilling.
Oh, yeah, the cameras, the security cameras, yes. Ms. Courtney, when I was talking to her yesterday, she's like, there's not gonna be some interruption, okay.
Will the public hear us? I mean, I don't know, can y'all hear us?
David, can you hear us? Still talking?
Yes, I can hear, I can hear you.
The noise is not us, it's coming from outside, so you all know. There's nothing we can do about it. I guess the soundproofing isn't working.
It's not in this room, it's not in this room.
Oh, is it not here?
No, I have soundproofing in this room.
that's right.
Oh, well.
But anyway,
Okay,
that's.
but to
so-
Lori's point, there's a deadline that y'all have to work under to submit this policy by a hard and fast date.
Right.
And so if we go out for public comment, comes back to the committee, goes back out for public comment, comes back.
But see, it doesn't. See, that's what y'all are confused about. It doesn't go back out for a second time.
Well, you're saying
It is
it
approved
can or
by the
it
committee.
can't.
It is approved by the committee, and then it is finalized. At that moment, it is finalized. When it goes out for public comment and comes back to the committee, and then the committee votes to do it, it is finalized. And then it comes to the.
I'd like to get legal advice on this.
Legal advice?
Well, I mean, the attorneys have to tell us this public comment thing, how does that work and can that happen?
If we had a committee meeting, y'all could have talked about this and we don't have to have it in this.
Right.
this
But what I'm
meeting.
saying
So,
is.
anyhow.
There's never been I can talk about public comment all day, but the point is that there is no legal, requirement for public comment. There has been. It's been
On a policy, there's
On
no.
any policy, there's no legal requirement for public comment.
But we often do it.
But we do it, obviously.
Yes.
And I'm not saying we're not doing it in this case. Of course, we're doing it. All we're doing is bringing it back. We're putting it out for public comment, and then it's coming back to the committee. And more than likely, there won't be substantial changes at that point. But if there was enough to where the providers, thought that there should be more public comment, it is approved at the moment that we approve it. But then we can reevaluate it, because see, then when we approve it the first time, then it meets her deadlines. But then it is approved and everything's fine unless we decide to go back over it, which we've done before in other policies. This is not anything sinister or odd or any of those kind of things. It's just a different way that we're doing it now until the end of the fiscal year. We're doing it a backwards way that we normally did it, but we're still doing it. Is all it is. Y'all are making it more complicated than it is.
I don't understand it, so I'll be perfectly honest with y'all. I'm gonna have to trust somebody at this point.
Change things,
That-
there's confusion,
Constance,
so.
As the executive director,
I think
is
what
this okay?
Barry's proposing is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and Constance's assurance that this is okay. So, all in
So what's the
favor?
motion again, something?
Oh, God. Chrissy, did you write it down by any chance?
Constance's gonna state it, so she said that,
You want me to say it again? I'll try to. What I'm saying is that when a policy needs to be, it's decided by the staff, needs to be evaluated, they will then go ahead and evaluate it and make the changes they think is necessary. Then they will put it out for public comment. At that point, after the 10-day only public comment period, because we need to get it back to the committee as soon as possible, then the committee will evaluate it. And then the committee will bring it to the commission for approval. And then it will be approved. At that point, if there is public outcry because there was too many changes made by the commission to that policy, then the policy committee would be happy to reevaluate that policy, but it will be approved at the date when the commission approves it. So any deadlines we have are met. But if there is public outcry, we will, as a matter of courtesy, may I say again, we will reevaluate the policy and go from there and do the same process again for that same policy. And until that policy is reevaluated, it stays at what it was when we approved it the first time. So everything is, there's nothing.
Okay, that's your motion.
Sinister or anything else about it. That's the motion.
All right. Everybody understand the motion?
Yes, I mean, I do.
Chrissy,
I
you
get
got
the-
it?
I get the concept.
Constance, you understand? I got it. Okay.
The concept
Lori, you
says
okay with this?
it's
I mean, I understand. I just want to make sure I understood the workflow.
Sure. All right. Commissioner Miller, you understand?
I think I do.
He understands.
All right. Commissioner Corr, you got any questions about this crazy thing? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries, and that's how it will be handled. All right, so that's taken care of. Director's update. Our wonderful director, Ms. Constance Holloway.
I'll be very brief. I want to thank you guys for giving me a few moments to talk this morning about exciting things.
Yeah, it is. He's good.
You might want to go there. I don't know.
About,
Really, again, you might want to go there.
I don't think there's not a mic up there.
Oh, yeah.
About the exciting things we've been doing over the past weeks. I'd like to first start off by recapping some of the great work our staffers are doing across our state. I want to begin with Melissa Ritter. Melissa's still here. Here she is in her dress. Melissa is our Brain and Spinal Injury Division Director. In observance of Brain Injury Awareness Month, Melissa has coordinated informational resources for staff that has been shared on social media, and has hosted a market in our conference where handmade goods were sold to benefit those with brain injury. Has that market happened? It'll happen. There will be another opportunity for me to buy baked goods at the end of the month. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss out on anything. Also out of central office, Stephanie Turner, who is currently now, she's not here today, she's in Orange County.
Training.
Who's our autism director, has continued training law enforcement agencies statewide on communicating with those individuals who have autism. Our communications is inviting media to those trainings. So Stephanie conducted interviews with local media in the Midlands 2 weeks ago, and we'll be doing the same with PD Media today following her training with Horry County officers. The press, the response in the press in regards to her last training was phenomenal. Stephanie does fantastic work, and she's currently in Horry now doing the training for PD County.
Horry County
Sheriff's Department. In regards to central office staff, HR is currently working with our new and fantastic communication teams regarding recruitment. The communications team is working on a video to include with all job postings regarding the overview of BDSN. We're also revitalizing our social media pages with positive content to showcase the great work environment we have here, and we'll be working on obtaining employee referrals to enhance recruitment. I also want to make sure I highlight some of the great events and work that are going on at our regional centers. Coastal Center recently hosted self-advocacy training day where consumers were taught about the rights they have and what to do if they have any questions or concerns. At Midlands, audio books, CDs, and other materials were recently donated by the State Library. This donation should serve as a catalyst for an ongoing partnership with the State Library that will benefit all of our centers. So we certainly appreciate the State Library and its branches for thinking of us. PD has also been active in the community and received a very generous donation Monday from the Knights of Columbus. The donation will go towards supporting consumers at the facility, and communications was able to attend and get photos for social media. Whitten Center is currently, hard to remind me, Whitten Center is embarking on a project in regards to their garden center.
Yes, the interactive garden. So the pre-bid conference was yesterday, and I think that the time frame is, bids will come in for that work to get it ready.
Our first of April, and then the final bids, actually the live date on the work, depending on contractors, could start by the end of April.
By the end of April, okay. So that's just a quick snapshot of all the exciting things that are happening at our each regional centers. Each of our centers are filled with staffers who do amazing work and make life fun and fulfilling for each of our consumers. I also want to provide a brief eligibility update. We are still working to improve the eligibility process. Lori and Harley and Janet and executive staff are working on a daily basis to improve that process in conjunction with the eligibility team. We will provide an update regarding the updated process when it's finalized. Thank you. That's just a brief snapshot of things that we've been doing. I have been referring to this month as March Madness. It came in and it's been crazy, but we're excited about all the great work that all the staff are doing currently.
You mentioned eligibility, and I know it was last May where we received a presentation from Brian. Is it Brian?
Brian Hawkins.
Yeah, and he kind of was giving us an overview of how eligibility works and the process and the different ways that that people that are looking to become eligible through DDSN are considered, and so at that point, when you said you were working on new, how do you say it, a new process or new something, that improving the process. Okay. So we'll get an update on what those improvements are at some point in the near future. Is that okay? Just making sure.
There was also in regards to, so when Brian Hawkins came and reported May, there was also, I believe, a motion made by Thomas, Commissioner Thomas, for some additional training for the commission.
Right.
We're going to work to set up that, because it can't be in a full-blown commission meeting because it would be too long. So we're going to work on having a separate training for the commission at a later date.
Okay, gotcha.
The only question I would have about that is, would you anticipate that to be before the end of the fiscal year?
I'm looking at Lori.
It really depends on whether we get the new autism evaluators in place, because I think part of the issue is it doesn't make sense to do training on something that we're changing, right? So I think the thought is, let's get it changed, then do training so that you understand kind of the current process. We're kind of in that state of change. So it depends. I think we have those, do we have those positions posted?
No, but
Yeah, we're working on posting those positions, even though like that was one of the things that the House did not fund in our budget. But it's one of the things that we're committed to doing because there's such long waits for people to be evaluated for autism. So we're going to do it I think we're going to get started with it either way. That was kind of our charge whenever we started it. So we're going to get those positions posted. And then once we kind of morph into this new system, the other thing is, I think, if I understood it correctly, you guys wanted a presentation that led all the way into kind of waiver enrollment. So one of the things that's happening now with the end of the public health emergency is, I don't know if you remember discussing that there are people who were kind of sitting in waiver slots and paused. So that is going to be happening at the same time. So numbers are going to look a little different soon too. Those people will actually be reevaluated and disenrolled if they can be. The Medicaid re-evaluations are starting to happen. That's going to affect numbers. So, I don't know if it'll be before the end of the public health emergency, because I think if we let stuff level set, it'll make more sense, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Commissioner Thomas, are you clear and good with that, since this was your idea a few months ago to get more information about eligibility? Did you follow Lori on that, since you made, I think, the motion?
He did.
7 months ago. That's on mute. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm assuming he was.
Yeah.
I'll check with him. I mean,
Just make sure he hears what she
I'll
said,
definitely will. I do.
because he was the one who was really.
Constance, is there a way that we can get the total number of consumers that DDSM serves and then divide it down into the number of consumers who are on in-home supports and consumers that are in regional centers?
Yeah, we have that report.
Is that on this report? That's what I was looking at.
No, we don't have that on this report. We do have that report though. We have that
But can
in
y'all I'd like to see that information. Somebody asked me that the other day and I didn't know the answer.
Yeah, it gets updated on a regular basis by our data folks. So I know I've shared it with Commissioner Malfris.
Now, yeah, every quarter, I mean, every.
But
year.
I can just have Constance send it out to the group.
The other thing that I want us to address is we need to go ahead and get scheduled with governance training. I think Carly was working on that. Is that correct?
So governance training is going to be part of strategic planning.
Okay.
So as far as the strategic planning goes, they will, Carly, do they know when they're going to do the governance training component?
No, but I'll follow up with Sage Squirrel this week, and so we can go ahead and start scheduling.
Yeah, we really need to get that scheduled as soon as possible.
One more question for Constance.
Okay, go ahead.
Back in August, we were provided information on new initiatives, proposed new initiatives, and we voted as a commission on those initiatives. What is the latest on the initiative around the provided grants to help with training and staff support? And we,
So
hadn't heard about it.
Was it provider recruitment or?
No, it was referred to as.
Yeah, I remember that.
Providing providers grants, our providers grants to do shared, I think, co-op. Y'all called it a co-op, where they would share providers were that wanted certain training on a topic. They could share resources amongst each other to bring in people to help train them on topics that they need training on that they're currently not getting.
It was one of the last things that was done under Dr. Brown.
That was in August?
Yeah.
I'm looking at Harley because she does grant.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about a number of different grant initiatives, and so I think.
You remember
that-
the one for providers to?
I'm
get
aware
trained?
of it, Commissioner Blackwood, thank you. And so I think that we have a monthly provider meeting on Monday. It's actually in person here at the agency. Of course, it'll be available virtually for providers that cannot attend in person. I think maybe I can use the opportunity to request input from providers on the types of programming that would be most beneficial to them, since this is to directly serve them. And so we could take that input and see if that type of model that Dr. Fry suggested back in August is still relevant and reasonable now, or if there's other types of grant programs that would most benefit the work that the providers are doing.
That answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. We're just trying to figure out if we did it or we didn't do it, or, I mean, we voted to let them do it, was the thing, and so we just didn't know if it had been done or
Well,
not.
providers are asking for training, so I just want to make sure that we're moving forward with the co-op model that seemed to be important and necessary and wanted by several providers. And so I just.
Good question. Any other questions?
I just want to state for the record, I think from the last report that I saw, it was saying approximately, the change of the date, approximately 21,550 people was the last report that I saw, but it changes every day.
Of course, because people go off.
So they go and come and all that.
Yeah.
And it is going to change too whenever the end of the year comes and we have this new FMAP situation, because the people are going to be freed up. Is that going to be by the end of the year, Lori, or is that before that, where the people are freed up to get off the waiver if they want?
Yeah, so it will be an effort. We're currently working with HHS. I mean, as you can imagine, it's a big list and you can't just like drop everybody in one day. The other thing is we're gonna have to come up with some effort to re-reach those folks who maybe we've lost contact with. Like, we're not gonna just cut everybody off, right? So I'm trying to get some direction about whether or not we have 6 months or 12 months, because the pausing of those services is not directly tied to the Appendix K, which we know is a 6-month unwind. So my thought is perhaps we have the same amount of time that we have for Medicaid reavals, which is a 12-month rolling period they're going to use. So my hope is that we have that amount of time and we can do it in increments. The other thing is, even if we did disenroll that number of people in one day, it's going to take some time to get that number of people re-enrolled. A lot of you guys were around when the system got flooded with slots and it kind of bogged things down. So we're looking at all kinds of different ways to do it. But I think the longest period it would be May of 24, right? So a year after the end of the public health emergency. That would be the longest amount of time we would have, so.
I know that there was a federal requirement, and I can't remember what the federal requirement was, but at one point, someone told us they were just gonna pay the fine. What was that?
I think you're talking about conflict-free case management.
Are we gonna
Right,
meet that deadline?
So at this point, we have 29% left, right? We had to have 50% completed on January 1st. We have 29% left. I can absolutely put that on the agenda for the next commission meeting because we just did numbers from December.
Okay.
So I can let you know where we are.
So we're getting closer to meeting, is that what you're saying?
We're getting closer to meeting it, but we're also running into capacity issues in the case management world for the first time. So, you know, we're kind of talking through some ways that we can help deal with those capacity issues.
Yep.
And I can talk through that whenever I give you, you know, the report. So maybe we can just put that on the agenda for the next
I will
meeting.
be listening, I will not be participating. So yeah, I think that's important for us just to make sure, because that was one thing.
There's also an EVV, electronic visit verification, that we're paying a penalty for. And it's a project that we're not paying the penalty. When they be clear, CHHS is, they always did.
Okay.
there's a project going through HHS for an EVV system. It was on a track to start and DHHS has basically stopped and are starting over. So they're currently reconvening a work group to do an RFP for an EVV vendor. So it's going to be a while, but they are on an accelerated track. That's, kind of what I hear.
That's good. I mean, those were just things that were hitting my mind. Cost reports is the other thing. When are cost reports due, and are we in process of getting the current, because we're up to date, if I'm correct?
Yeah,
Our last one.
yeah, we submitted our cost report, made the deadline for Medicaid. That's part of the guidance that we want to get through. We're currently working with HHS to make sure whatever we release, matches up, because, providers are going to be sending their cost reports directly to HHS this year. So we're working on making sure our guidance and their guidance is the same. They've got different templates than we had on our website in the past. So there's going to be changes, and they're going to be pushing out information and manuals and all those things that they're working on now. So we'll probably, hopefully Monday when we have a provider call, maybe they'll update on that. If not,
That's good to
something
hear.
will be coming
I'm
out.
just glad to hear we're doing them on time. They were 10 years behind? Is that correct?
Yeah, we had to do a few years and, a short amount
The
of time.
commission and the
Exactly.
agency had not done it for 10 years. Okay, well, I appreciate you doing that, Quincy, and being on time with it. You're doing an outstanding job with that.
And that was much worse than our regulations, by the way.
That's what I've heard.
That was much worse than that. Anyway.
All right. Is there any further business?
Madam Chair, all of what we just discussed was a part of the director's update, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so now we need a motion to enter into executive session to receive legal advice regards to a lawsuit and Legislative Audit Council, LAC, final report.
So moved.
So a motion and a second. We will be going into executive session and we'll come back out to play. Closing out of executive session, no votes were taken, no decisions made in executive session. The next regular scheduled meeting for this commission is Thursday, April 20th at 10 a.m. I do have one announcement, two announcements. One, Commissioner Miller did volunteer to serve with Commissioner Malphurs and Commissioner Blackwood on the Personnel Committee. And I will not be seeing you in April. My surgery is April the 18th, so you will have Commissioner Malphurs running the meeting next month. And they'll look forward to seeing you on April the 20th at 10 a.m. Thanks.
Motion to move to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All opposed? None, motion carries. We're adjourned.